Hello and welcome to Console Shock, Retro and Modern Gaming Chat with Trev and, as always, Stu.
Hello, hi, Stu. Trev. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm alright. Oh, you didn't say you're fine before I've even asked you. You've been doing that the last few.
Oh, I'm fine.
With Stu. Yeah, fine, mate.
Yeah, fine. No, I'm good. I'm good. Normally, when we do this podcast, I'm sitting here with a beer or something like that, but I've got a coffee today.
Oh, yeah, same here. We're a bit earlier today for a very specific
Exactly.
reason.
We've got a special guest on, so you can probably see that in the title, but...
yeah, we don't want to overload it. It's not stupidly early. It's like, it's 9 o'clock. We can just say... I don't know why I'm making out the mystery. I can just flat out say what time it is. It's 9 in the morning here, but it's very, very late for our guest that we've got on. But before we bring him on, we're just going to have our little warm-up that we always do. We actually recorded our last episode a few days ago, so probably not much has probably happened between us.
Not really.
Are you still playing Gears of War? Jump to the next one yet?
I've finished now. I've finished Gears of War, and I've started playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
As in the new one.
Well, about 3 years old, but yeah, it's just I don't know, bubblegum, running forward, shooting everyone. Quite good fun for about sort of 6 hours.
Yeah.
Sort of perfect little game, and that'll take me through to I think that Mario Strikers I'm going to grab next.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it.
I have too. Yeah.
I like the old. I played the GameCube one, Mario Smash Football, which they renamed it over here in those Super Mario Strikers. That was a fun game. So we're getting a lot of those sort of GameCube era Mario sports games. We're getting a lot of sequels to them. And the subsequent Nintendo, golf. We've got the golf. We've got tennis. We've got football now. The only one we haven't got yet is the baseball game that was on the GameCube, but they're probably going to do that.
We don't want to waste time for that.
You don't want to spend 8 hours hitting something with just play the show or that's on the Switch now, isn't it? Which is pretty.
That is yeah.
Which is kind of cool. So you can play that. I've just been playing. We're literally in the last couple of days my X Station more than anything else.
Is that arcade thing?
It's the optical drive emulator for the PlayStation 1.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it.
You have.
Loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought yesterday I sort of tried playing some of the Capcom fighting games that are more famous on the Saturn because it had its lovely little RAM cart. So you got all the really good conversions of those arcade games like Marvel Superheroes and X-Men versus Street Fighter. I thought I'd torture myself and play the PS1 games and didn't have any of that. I've heard stories of all the animations been cut and you can't do anything. It looks crap. But playing Marvel vs. Capcom, it's actually quite good. It's missing some animation. There's no tag team element to it at all. So you don't have two characters that you play as. You just have your one character and you can select a second character to come in to do a special move with you. Again, a lot of people say, well, that's not really Marvel vs. Capcom then, is it? It's just a one-on-one fighting game. But it's actually all right, considering they had 2 megabyte of RAM in the PS1 to work with, whereas the Saturn, I guess you've got 6, haven't you, with the RAM card they could use.
Yeah, no, that's right, yeah.
It's a much different story. But it's actually all right. They're very expensive, though. If you look up the actual physical copies of these, even though they're not the versions of the games that you'd really want to get, it'll probably be the Dreamcast if you want Marvel Superhero or Marvel.
Yeah, I'd suggest, but that's got the awful controller though.
It has got the awful controller.
Yeah.
The PS1 controller is probably a tiny bit better for that sort of game. But even the PS1 version of that game is I think it was sort of going for over £100 for that. And in fact, all those Marvel, Capcom, sort of crossover games, the ones that did come out on the PS1, very expensive. But in those days, if you couldn't afford a Dreamcast or importing Saturn games, that was probably the only way a lot of people were introduced to those games. So, they're actually worth checking out. They're not as bad as you might think. So, that's damning it with faint praise. But anyway, so we have a guest on today. I've sort of alluded to a bit of a time zone thing that me and Stu were experiencing. We're up a little bit earlier. Who we're bringing on is very, very late on their side, but we're really, really happy for this person to join us today. We're a big fan of their channel, and it is, in fact, Joe from GameSack. Thanks for joining us, Joe. I know it's super late for you right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's like 2:13 a.m. for me right now, but this is just normal. I usually go to bed about 3:30 a.m. or so. It's just what I do. I'm kind of a night owl. I like to work late when everyone else is in bed. The world is quiet, and it's just, I don't know. They say the creative people work better at night. I don't know if that's true, but it definitely is for me. So I get a lot of work done late at night.
Apart from, the rocking back and forth in the corner with the lights off. That obviously helps as well, right? That's how you come up with GameSack, isn't it? The scripts of the episodes, just,
I just sit there in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth, and they just come to me via osmosis.
Yeah, that's how we work, isn't it, Stu? So,
yeah. Lots of planning goes into this.
A lot of ground has been covered about how you started your channel and things, and you've been on other podcasts like the Retro Hour. We had Ravi on recently on our show, who does the Retro Hour. You've chatted to those guys, that you covered a lot of how you got started and all that kind of stuff. So we don't want to sort of tread that ground again. But one thing that I've been meaning to ask you, I'm a big Star Trek fan, as people that listen to our show know.
Joe, I'm not. I don't like. Honestly, I haven't got time for it. It's just complete garbage. Not a fan at all. Carry on, Trev.
A lot of the time it is complete garbage, believe me. You listen to some of our reviews of some of the episodes. But yeah, I'm a big Star Trek fan. I've got a podcast, Star Trek podcast that I do alongside this. Check it out. It's called Long Range Sensors. Cheap plug there. But you had an episode dedicated to Star Trek. And what was even more amazing about it was you had an actual Star Trek actor on it. You had Manu, I'm going to butcher his name, Intiami?
Manu Anti-Ray. Now you got me done. Manu Anti-Rami.
That's it. So he was Icheb in Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, he's Icheb on Voyager.
Yeah, who's kind of a Borg teenager who liked Seven of Nine. I'm not going to go into depth about that because there's people that are probably rolling their eyes at us talking about Star Trek on this show. But what was that like, getting like an actual actor on there? I mean, it was cool just having a Star Trek episode anyway. But was that something you set out to do? Was it just an accident that you were able to get access to an actor? I mean, how did you just ask on Twitter? How did it work?
No, well, my friend Yoshi Vu, who does all the graphics for GameSack, and he's worked in that industry out there in California, like for Lucasfilm, and doing CG and effects on lots of other productions and whatnot. And somehow he knows Icheb. In fact, he knows Manu.
Can't help it.
And in fact, Manu officiated his wedding, so that was kind of cool. So, but I was talking to Yoshi a few years ago, several years ago. It's probably 2018, I think, and I was planning on going out there to visit him, and he told me that, hey, if you want to do something with Star Trek, Manu says he'd be down. And so I was like, hey, that's cool. I guess I'm making a Star Trek episode. So that was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like having him around? I mean, did you just spend a bit, obviously, not stuff you won't want to record in the episode, but did you just spend time just asking about what was it like being on the set and what were the actors like? Did you just manage to cover any of that ground while he was around?
I did a little bit. I mean, we were just hanging out before we did any shooting. And we'd talk a little bit about that. And there's like, I can't say, but there is one actress he absolutely hates, and she doesn't work on Voyager. She worked on a different show, but I don't know how he knows her. Maybe through a convention or something. But that was fun to hear about.
Was she just in a trial with Johnny Depp?
No, she wasn't.
No, okay.
And he is funny, and watching him make Instagram posts and stuff like that on his Instagram is like, it's funny. And but yeah, he's a pretty down to earth guy. I mean, he has a very good sense of humor. He's very self-deprecating because on camera he would let me just call him Icheb instead of Manu just because that was funny, and he knew it. And that was funny, and he was okay with me like mispronouncing his name and saying, "Well, what a stupid name! Why do you have a stupid name like that?" or whatever it was that I said. And he was just really down to earth and just fun. I mean, I wouldn't expect that. I was surprised I was able to get away with what I did. Just a cool guy.
I don't get that impression that he's like, I don't know, William Shatner, who hates being associated with Star Trek a lot of the time. He's like, I'm not a space captain. Shut up. Manu seems to like embrace being in Star Trek. He's happy to joke about it and the sort of the campiness of the whole thing and the silliness of it. Was that your impression of him in real life when you got to hang out with him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he really enjoyed his time in Star Trek and wishes he could be in more, but they killed him off.
Wow. Yeah, I know. Yeah, literally. I guess the year after that in Discovery, the character not played by Manu.
No, it was in Picard actually.
Picard, sorry, yes, not a Discovery. Yeah, he gets his eye ripped out.
Yeah,
and dies a brutal death.
It's totally stupid.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh my god, why did they kill him? He was such a cool. And then there was the whole thing later on where they don't allow 709 said, oh, they don't allow Borg to join Starfleet. That's why I'm not in it. And I was like, yeah, but Icheb was just in Starfleet. Okay. Anyway, that's a whole that. We'll save that for our Star Trek podcast. Joe, maybe we'll invite you on for that episode.
Right.
On that one as well, but. That's cool. Sure, I know you've got some questions as well, so I'll let you jump in now.
Yeah, so, well, first I wanted to say, Joe, it's great having you on, but I used to run a video game store in Croydon in South London, and your YouTube channel was brilliant because of the long form videos. So we used to just put on the playlist, and we had about a few screens around the store that used to just show the episodes, because we did a lot of sort of retro video games, and people will see those videos and then, actually come and sort of buy those games, which was really good. So it was great fun, and I love the sort of the long form sort of content. It's not all just short 3 minutes. It's each episode's about half an hour, but I've got a few questions which will hopefully sort of dive off into sort of other directions. But what's your favourite game or game series that's been left somewhere?
Well, I think the first one that pops into the top of my head would be Phantasy Star. And, they've made the Phantasy Star Online series, and, it's all well and good for the people who enjoy that. But what I want is a real Phantasy Star RPG. They stopped with 4. And, I can understand why they did, but I want more. It's just really, it was really, really good when it was around. And I want a single player RPG. Y'all can all have that online stuff.
Yeah.
So it was almost like,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Trev. It was sort of like, it could have been as big as Final Fantasy now if it had continued.
Could have, if they handled it right. But this is Sega we're talking about, so they wouldn't have handled it right.
No,
they're frustrating, aren't they, Sega?
Yeah,
certainly.
The Mega Drive 2, whatever it is, has just been announced. Have you seen that, Joe? The mini Mega Drive 2?
Yeah, I did. That's interesting. That'll be. I hope they improved some of their emulation, especially like the sound delay and what have you.
M2 is it M2 again that's handling it? I know they did the first one. I'm not sure who's handling it.
Probably. I don't see why they wouldn't. But I think a lot of the flaws we saw with the first one might have been due to the system on a chip they were using, and at least that's what I've heard. So those flaws may be back for this one, unless they got a better system on a chip. But they're doing the Sega CD and the Mega CD, so that'll be interesting to see how they handle it. I noticed Popful Mail was one of the titles they announced, and I don't think you guys got that over in the UK, did you?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it's got that's the main draw of this one, isn't it? There's some Mega CD included, which is kind of cool.
But I'm curious about that one. It's a pretty good game, and it has an English translation. Released in North America by Working Designs, but it's not the world's best translation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they'd probably want to cut out. There's like a part where a character does an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation for like 45 seconds, and then there's like they're referencing old 90s commercials from the UA or USA in there, and it's just kind of weird. So I don't even know if Sega owns that translation. Working Designs probably does. So I'm thinking that title will only be in Japan, unfortunately.
It's also the fact that the Mega Drive was just supremely unpopular in Japan. So, it being especially the Mega Drive 2, that's like a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche for them. So, it's kind of odd that they would focus so heavily on a market that hated them. Apart from the Saturn, we know that was mildly popular, but it wasn't anything to write home about, was it? But anyway, Stu, sorry, I'll let you jump back in.
No problem. So, one of my favourite videos that you've done is about the CD32, and it's always interesting seeing sort of an American's or your own perspective on it. And I mean, it was a bit of a disaster, really. But you know, I've worded my questions. What's your problem with the CD32?
Well, my problem with the CD32 is that I don't have any nostalgia for it. So I have to look at it as it is. And it's just, you know, most of the games, I mean, I don't know what they had against the buttons on controllers, you know, for that system, but I don't need to press up to jump in every game. Just map that to a controller button, please. I mean, there are some games actually that I don't mind pressing up to jump, but there's just too many on the CD32/Amiga. But still, I do kind of have like a weird fascination with the Amiga. I always like playing a lot of the games. I've been playing a lot of Amiga games on my Mister, and it's always interesting to see how they come out because they're all over the place. I mean, they can be extremely good or extremely bad. There's not like a base minimum or a base level like there is like on the Mega Drive or Genesis, and you know, it's just all over the map. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the huge video game, you know, creators these days, you know, they started from the Amiga. Psygnosis, obviously a big one, you know, PlayStation, DMA Design, you know, well, Grand Theft Auto. So, you know, a lot of those, you know, started with Lemmings and you know, Psygnosis had 1 billion games. So I suppose it's interesting for you guys to see where those companies started. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, you're not wrong, Joe. I mean, we love the Amiga, but the CD32 is great if it's for couch Amiga gaming or sofa, as we would call it, Amiga gaming. But a lot of the games have especially the European platformers, you know, Super Frog. I mean, come on.
Right.
Compare that to
Mario. The one I was thinking about, pressing up to jump. But I don't know.
Stuff and all of that awful stuff.
One thing I don't care for, I mean, a lot of people love it, but the hard panning of the audio is either hard panned left or hard panned right, and you only have 4 channels to work with. It's like, I know a lot of people love it, but I wish there was just a little bit more in there. And I can't play it with headphones due to the hard panning.
That's bizarre. Yeah, it's also the fact that the CD32 is obviously a consoleized Amiga 1200, and the Amiga 1200 was like an upgraded next generation, quote unquote, next generation Amiga, but they didn't add any. One thing they could have done with is to add like a couple more sound channels, because 4 isn't a lot. To the point where a lot of games you had to select, you know, do you want music or do you want sound effects? And, you know, very few would have both because there's just not enough channels to cover, you know, a nice soundtrack and sort of, you know, an explosion or a jumpy sound and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was kind of a weird one, but yeah, also, you know, the CD32 is very, very expensive these days. You did well to. How did you have to? I guess you imported one from the UK then to be able to do that, or did you just run an emulator?
No, I actually borrowed one from someone. So
right.
They mailed it to me, and I had to mail it back, and it was a PAL console, so it was running at 25 frames per second, and I was like,
yes,
I've never recorded anything in that frame rate, so that was an experience, but I was able to do it. It's like
very cinematic.
Yeah, if I had to, if I was tasked with doing that episode like a couple of years prior, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it just because I didn't have the equipment or a monitor that could even put it on screen.
Awful controller as well.
Yeah,
at least the one that came with it. I mean, one question I've got just for Stu. I'm sure you got some more, but one thing that I love about your channel is you're a big like advocate of just Sega generally, and I feel that was almost like you were really making a point of the fact that, you know, Sega were a thing as well, because so much like American like YouTube retro video game content is basically, you know, old video games equals NES.
Right.
Equals Nintendo. So I kind of feel like you made like I love the episode you do where you parody a lot of the other YouTubers, and one of them is the Angry Video Game Nerd, and there's a great line you do where it's like, hell, I don't even know anything that, you know, other than Nintendo.
Right.
And I was kind of like, absolutely, he really, you know, he does do Genesis episodes, but you feel like he kind of has to, not because he genuinely wants to do them. Is that a conscious thing from you? Like, right, I really want to just get it out there that Sega are awesome. Is that a thing you felt you've had? It's been a duty that you've had to do?
Well, kind of yes and no. I mean, I still love, you know, Nintendo games and everything, but it's like I can't stand the mindset of just being hyper focused on one console, because there's so many different things all over the place, and it's just if you enjoy gaming, then you want to play them on different consoles. Yeah, it sucks trying to buy the console because they're like $200 or $300, but you only have to buy the console once. After you buy the console, you have it, and then the games cost roughly the same amount on any different console. So it's I just like having lots of areas to play different kinds of games. I love the variety, and Sega needs to be not forgotten.
Yeah, it's really great, to see so much focus on Sega. I mean, I think me and Stu are quite blatant about the fact we're sort of Sega fanboys, and we like to talk about Sega in the UK especially was probably the Mega Drive, I think, was probably the most popular console versus the Super Nintendo. But one thing as well that's interesting is I don't think you're a big fan of Sonic particularly as well. I know you've done some reviews of the games. You kind of have to if you're going to cover Sega. But what are your sort of thoughts on the Sonic series, and why would you say you're not the biggest fan?
Well, when it came out, I was looking forward to it back in 1991, I guess it was, and I got it and I played it and I liked it. It was good. And then I see that it's announced for the Sega CD, and also Sonic 2 is coming out. I can't remember which one came out first, Sonic 2 or Sonic CD.
I think CD just after 2, I think, was it literally?
Yeah, I think you're right. And they came out like really close to each other. So I was like, I won't buy Sonic 2. I'll wait and get the CD version. But I rented Sonic 2. Right. And, it was fine. But having Tails in there, I mean, you could turn him off, thankfully. But I just found him annoying. And then Sonic CD came out, and I played it. And it was like, it just kind of left a bad taste in it. It was like too much Sonic all at once. Yeah. Sonic 2 and Sonic CD came out so close to each other. And around then, I just like, it's not bad. It's just not really for me. It's like I'm good with just Sonic 1 and being in my collection. Now, I guess Sonic CD as well.
Yeah, and then we kind of went the opposite way when we hit the Saturn, where we got basically nothing.
Right. Which was a bad move.
I think so. I mean, I've said before that perhaps when they launched the Saturn, but just like a port of Sonic CD, just to launch. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have got that game on the Mega CD originally.
Right.
It's not It's not a huge. Well, I guess it's not 3D, so they probably would have felt they might have made them look weak against the PlayStation with just a 2D Sonic game. They could have maybe just added some better 3D bonus levels or something. But I still think it would have been a good idea just as a pack-in Sonic CD Saturn Edition. But maybe that was never on the cards with being so against 2D in those days. But I mean, Stu, what else have you got for Joe?
Yeah, so it's talked about what you just mentioned before, and one of the sort of the funny things you should do more of, Joe. I'm not telling you how to run your channel, but who's the famous who's been the best YouTuber to sort of dress up as, and have they all been obviously I imagine they've seen it, and have you had any sort of negative sort of feedback from them saying don't use my likeness or anything like that? Have they all been sort of good sports?
None of them have ever said don't use my likeness. I think all of them have seen it. The one that took the longest to get to see it was Irate Gamer.
Yeah.
But he did see it, and then he eventually said, like, "Oh, you didn't make. I'm glad you didn't make too much fun of me," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then I heard some negative things coming from the Cinemassacre land at the beginning. Kind of. I mean, not directly. Kind of like he said, she said. Or hearsay or whatever the word is. I think you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
And but eventually I talked to James Rolfe, and he seemed to like it. He liked the song especially that I made, so he was cool.
Well, that's it. It's what's a parody, or it's almost like you're saying you like the guys, and that's a real compliment, really. Well, you kind of have to like, if you make fun of someone like that, you kind of actually do have to like them in some way, because it's
and if you don't, you get to like them as you're making fun of them. It's really hard to explain, but it's true. In fact, I think you were saying you were about to suggest that I should do that more often, and I agree. And I've done 2 more, not 2 more episodes, but 2 more parodies that I never finished. One was of the Gaming Historian. And I only did voices for these 2 guys, and the other was Guru Larry, which was really fun to do.
Oh yeah.
Larry's awesome.
Yeah, we've had him on a long while ago now, but
a few years ago, but he's great.
But I have these recordings that are probably 5 or 6 years old now of me doing him, and sometimes I listen to it and I just laugh. I'm like, I got to make an episode out of this somehow someday.
You just got to have a Peter Molyneux reference.
There is one.
Oh, good. He'll love that. Stu, go on.
I've got another one here. Now, obviously, we talked about the CD32, and there's another awful British console called the GX4000. Now, 1, have you ever heard of that? And 2, would you ever be interested, if you have heard of it, of reviewing it?
I think I have. I obviously don't know much about it, but GX4000 sounds like something that has entered my brain at some point. I would be interested in reviewing it, depending on how many games I could showcase for it. It's like another weird console that I had in my possession for a while called the Nuon, which is it was a weird standalone DVD thing. It had 4 or 5 games.
Red, isn't it? It's all
It's like a DVD player.
Yes, it's like a DVD player. But I sat on it and I was like, I got to make an episode. Should I? It only has 5 games or whatever. And then finally, the person who lent that to me, who also lent me other systems at the same time that I did make episodes on, wanted it back. I'm like, well, I guess that ship has sailed. I kind of regret not making an episode. But yeah, GX4000, if I had it and I could record it and I had enough games to make the episode interesting, yes, I would love to do it.
Yeah, because it's quite an unusual console, because it's based on sort of an old microcomputer, which they just consoleized, and it came out at just the wrong time, the wrong price. Everything was wrong about it.
Is it made by Amstrad?
Amstrad, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, I know exactly what that is.
We got a similar thing with the Commodore 64. I don't think you guys got it in America, but we had the Commodore 64 GS, which was literally, I don't know if you've heard of this, Joe, but it was actually a consoleized Commodore 64 that came out sort of Christmas 91, I think, or 90. But the funny thing, it was literally, they took the motherboard of a Commodore 64 and just put it into a plain console-looking case. And the games, because the Commodore 64 could also play cartridges, the regular Commodore 64 could. This could just play the cartridge software and nothing else. Trouble is, some of that cartridge software was ported, but often they would forget to take out something like on the title screen. It would be press F1 to start game, but there'd be no F1 key, so you couldn't start a game.
They didn't even bother testing them. Wow.
No.
Yeah.
It was insane. So that's sort of a funny one to look out for, but they're rare as hell because they didn't sell very well at all.
Right.
I mean, that brings me to a question that I've got. Kind of an obvious question that we like to ask people that we have on as guests, but desert island scenario, you've got to take one console with you, whether it's retro or we can go with modern as well. What would you go for out of everything that you've covered in GameSack?
Wow. Honestly, probably the Genesis, and of course a flash cart that can also play the CD games. I don't know. It probably just that console means more to me than most of the others. But I'd be content with a PlayStation as well, PlayStation 1, or even PlayStation 2.
Have you tried the X Station on the PlayStation 1? You have an episode.
Yeah, I do. I love it. It's like you kind of have to have it these days because those drives are so finicky.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, I've got 5 PS1s, and I think a couple of them the drives are dying, but now you can just drop an ODE in there. It's absolutely amazing. And The one thing I don't have is the PS1 digital. I mean, would you recommend that as well? I think you've demoed that on your channel.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but there's some issues with it, especially because like a lot of those games flip back and forth between progressive scan and interlace, because interlaced menus was the thing back then, and it can mess up your TV. I mean, not physically hurt them, but it just causes delay as they figure out what to do when they switch the signals. And the PlayStation 1 digital, it doesn't seem to handle that well. It doesn't have it also doesn't have adaptive deinterlacing. And so I honestly, these days, I just run the RGB out of it and go into the RetroTink 5X, which does have adaptive deinterlace, and there's no hiccup when it flips to interlace and back. So
yeah, it's definitely something I would recommend, the PS1 digital. It's the X station for sure. I mean, it is quite expensive. I can't solder or do any of that stuff, so I bought a pre-built one. There's quite a few on eBay, but there is a bit of a premium. But I know you can just use a PS3, but obviously they have their own reliability issues. I know the Slims obviously are fine. They're a bit better than the fat ones, the original models. But also there's a lot of PS1. There's actually a few PS1 games that just don't work. I found another one the other week, Robotron X, which is a game that I really like playing on the PS1. That crashes, and normally a few levels in. So that's one that just doesn't work on a PS3. So you need a PS1 really, or a PS2 there. Stu, I'll jump back to you.
Yeah, so obviously you've got a huge collection of games, and where do you sort of buy them from? Is it sort of eBay? I don't know, garage sales and things like that, or we'll call them boot fairs or flea markets, or
all of the above. Really, I bought a lot back when they originally came out, and of course some of them have gone up in price, others not so much. And then, like, I would say 15 to 20 years ago, my friend Dave and I hit up a lot of thrift stores, secondhand shops where people just give their old stuff and then they sell it, and was able to find a lot of games for cheap. We went to flea markets, we went to a few garage sales. Garage sales are kind of hit and miss around here. And then of course eBay, like you said as well. Around the same time, 15 to 20 years ago, I was buying up a lot of stuff on eBay, and I would bulk at things that cost like, oh, that's $30. I don't want to pay that. And of course, that game is like $500 these days. So it's like, I wish I would have paid that. But a lot of that, and sometimes local game stores, not like GameStop's the big one that gets in all the news, but I'm talking local mom and pop game stores, locally owned. Bought a lot of games there as well, and I haven't bought many old games recently. The few that I have been off of eBay.
Do you find now, we talked about the X station and sort of things like that, the ODE solutions, do you find that actually to make your videos a lot easier? And because I can imagine that if you're trying to do a Left in Japan 7 and you're trying to find this really rare game that's amazing, but it's it's $200 and it only comes up on eBay once every 6 months. So you find actually it's easier to download the ROM, put it onto the PlayStation, the Saturn, or the Mega Drive. Do you just find it's easier to do it that way now?
Oh God, yes. It's so convenient. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to make the episodes. And I just load everything on the flash carts or the ODEs if I have them and stuff. I think I have the ability to do that for every single one of my systems now, except like the Xbox 360. I still have to have the real games for that. But and stuff like, well, I was able to do it with the PlayStation 3, but the PlayStation 3, I what do they call it? Jailbreak. It doesn't seem to work for me anymore. I mean, it powers up, but it doesn't play games. I don't know. I must have done something wrong or forgot how to use it because I use it so infrequently. But yes, it makes it much easier. It's just a convenience factor as well. It's like, because all my games are stored downstairs, and my office where I capture the videos and edit the videos is upstairs, and I'd have to be running downstairs back and forth to, get the real cartridge or disc or whatever. And back in the day, I'd have to have my PlayStation 1 sitting on its side because it wouldn't read discs. Otherwise, it would stutter.
Upside down.
Yeah. Well, mine wanted to be on its side.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a lot easier. It makes making the show much less stressful. Though not too tremendously long ago, I made an episode called Every Master System Game Released in North America or something like that, where it had 114 games or however many were released here. And I have them all except for one. And
wow.
So I actually did use my actual cartridges on that episode just because I thought it would be cool, even though I was the only one who knew that I was using my own actual cartridges. I just thought it would be fun to power them all up. And I did that with the TurboGrafx one too.
Oh, you had all the TurboGrafx games?
Well, I don't have them all, but I have enough of them. So, and the ones I didn't, I used a flash device.
Yeah, because you can get the little flashcards for it. Yeah, because I've got this odd thing called it's like a PAL version of the TurboGrafx, and that came out here sort of years after. It was a little bit odd, but so I've got one of those. But
it's pretty cool, actually. I like the way they look. They're kind of like more gray.
Yeah, they're a different color, and they've got AV out.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a sort of weird machine that I don't know. Somehow they've sort of sorted that out, but
it was originally they were going to launch the TurboGrafx in Europe, and they got actually to the point where they started they manufactured those consoles. It was just called the TurboGrafx, not without the 16.
Right.
And the last minute they just cancelled it because I think the Mega Drive was gaining traction in the UK. The Super Nintendo was coming out. Which is bizarre. You would do that after you'd manufacture them, but the ones that got made and were put in, obviously they're fully, they're full realized consoles. They got the boxes and the manuals, and they just end up being sold to distributors like Telegames in the UK, and that's how they're filtered through. But they play all the US TurboGrafx games, except that they just play them at 50 hertz,
right? So
they're slowed down, and but it's got the AV out in the side. So it's not RF, which is great. And you can even attach the CD to it as well, and it works. So it's quite a bizarre console that we got. But it looks cool. It's kind of got a sort of grayish with a red and sort of blue kind of on the logo.
Yeah, I always thought it looked cool, and I always thought the story behind it was fascinating. How it's kind of like, it's not black market, and it's kind of a gray market because it was never officially released.
Yes,
it
was an official item still, but it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's quite funny in the UK compared to America. I remember reading sort of video game magazines, and they used to sell one called GamePro, which I think was an American magazine, and you paid a little bit of a premium to get it, and it was sort of so interesting how we got so few games compared to sort of what you got in America and what they got in Japan, or just different games. There was a big sort of import scene. So I mean, do you ever feel sort of shortchanged from the amounts of games that sort of didn't come out in America? Because we always feel that, America, they got everything 6 months, a year before us. And
I mean, like, you guys got Shenmue 2 on the Dreamcast.
Well, that makes up for it all.
it wasn't, didn't have translated voices, but at least you got it. And you guys got Deep Fear on the Saturn. There's a lot of games that you guys got, and there's so many that Japan got that neither of us got. That's why I do the Left in Japan episodes.
Yeah.
So, I feel shortchanged a lot.
And Joe, do you ever wish you got the Club Football Leeds edition?
Oh, absolutely, man. I had to import 3 copies of that.
Well, there's the Leeds, there's all of them. I'm Joe. I'm pleased you got that reference there.
I didn't even get that reference. Was I?
You got that reference, Trev. The Club Football Charlton edition. Anyway, that's
I wish.
Yeah, not a problem. Go ahead, Trev.
I was going to say, out of all of the episodes you've done and all the different sort of, games that you've reviewed, obviously there's a lot of those games. Well, I would say probably most of them you probably haven't played before, but you've forced yourself to sort of play them. Some of the terrible ones as well, just to be able to get that episode out. Is there a particular like game series or even an individual game that you obviously never touched when you were a kid or growing up, but then you ended up playing it for the show and you're like, wow, this is where have you been all my life? Was there a game that did that for you?
I'm sure there has been, but I can't think of one right now. And off the top of my head, that's kind of I'd have to go downstairs and look, I think, at my game. Actually, there is one in recent memory anyway that I did. One of the Left in Japan episodes, there's this game called Magical Totoro Kun. I'm probably mangling that pronunciation, but it's announced on the Mega Drive Mini 2, and it's a licensed title in Japan. But I'd never really played it more than like a minute or two in the past. But I had to sit down with it for one of the Left in Japan episodes, and I played it for quite a while. And I'm like, you know what? I really like this. So I went out and bought the real thing off of eBay, and I know I've done that multiple times. I've played it for GameSack, and then I like it, and I buy the real thing because I think it'd be cool to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I found the same thing. A lot of shooters, with the PC Engine, I didn't really have growing up, or I didn't really play the shooter genre, shoot 'em up genre a lot as a kid, but I've come to really love it as an adult. We had a whole episode on it on that genre recently. Especially talking about how the PS1 weirdly is a really good shmup console.
Oh yeah,
you got a lot of compilations of the old 8-bit and 16-bit stuff on it. So you've got the old stuff. You've got sort of it was kind of like the golden age of the shooter at that point. It got a lot of them. I know some people say the Saturn is where you should go, but a lot of those come out on the PS1. You've got like Gradius Gaiden as well, which didn't come out
that was awesome.
That was awesome. So that's kind of a similar thing for me, but a whole genre there that I didn't really play a lot.
And so a lot of them you can play in tape mode.
That is correct.
Tape mode.
Tape mode.
I do. Well, I have. I mean, like the first time I noticed that was on. Well, it's called Galactic Attack here on the Saturn.
Yes.
I don't know what they call it over there. Layer section in Japan, anyway.
Layer section, Ray Storm, that series,
Yeah. But anyway, playing it on the Saturn in normal mode, it kind of pillar boxes the side of the screen. They're black bars, which is fine. And I'm playing along, and then I decide one day, like after GameSat comes out, because I've owned the games for years at this point, years and years and years.
Yeah.
Since it originally came out, actually. So I'm like, well, there's more resolution in tape mode. So I wanted to capture it that way. So I could, because the GameSack was in 1080p, so it could benefit for the extra resolution. And I could just rotate it in post. And so I did. And the effects, the special effects in the game are different when you play it in that mode, because the way the raster works and stuff like that on the TV, and they have like several effects that take advantage of that, and it's different. Like when you go into the moon, it's totally different and much better in tape mode. So that just blew me away. It's like, wow. It's like, I wonder how many people have noticed that they had to reprogram this game just to get it in normal mode for the Saturn.
There's the slightly bizarre Tate mode in on the
Trev, don't say that word.
Tate mode.
You gotta say tape mode.
Tate and Lyle. The Raiden project on PS1. There's a Tate mode in that. Let you rotate the TV. It actually says don't rotate the TV. Just play it as a horizontal shooter.
Yeah.
So
they won't let you rotate the controls.
No.
I think the Japanese version. I've heard the Japanese version lets you rotate the controls.
Oh right,
but not the international editions. They don't let you rotate the controls.
And the HUD they haven't tried to rearrange to help you. That's still the wrong way around to looking at it when you're playing it in that mode. So it's slightly bizarre.
It is.
And another great compilation that's just on the PS1 as well. That is, it's not on the Saturn. So in terms of obviously you got a really amazing production quality on the show. It's one of the things that's so attention grabbing about it. But knowing that you have that high quality that you have, how long does it take just to make an episode of GameSack? I know there's probably ones that take longer, others that take less. What would you say it is on average?
Average probably about a week and a half. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It depends on the episode. Some take 2.5 weeks. Like the one I have coming out next week is every Neo Geo game. Period. That took 2.5 weeks. Because I had to play and capture and write about and talk about and edit every Neo Geo game.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Insane.
And then another, if I'm talking about something where I only have 6 games in an episode, that's a little bit faster to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you actually try and obviously it's impossible really to play through like every game, but do you try and make a point of, right, I'm going to try and at least do a couple of hours of every game just so I'm not showing the opening stage?
I would. If I can't get past the opening stage, then I kind of make it a point not to have it on the show.
Yeah,
but I want to be able to at least show up to stage 3 or 4 if I can, or significantly that far into a game that doesn't have stages.
Yeah.
But it just depends. But yeah. Some games are really tough, and I don't pretend to be the best player in the world. I'm certainly not the worst. I don't suck at playing games, but I'm not the best.
You always get the comments, don't you? And
I get some.
That game, and it's just like, well,
Well, no, they don't usually say I suck at that game. They say I suck at every game. It's like they see one game I'm sucking at. It's like, can you play any game well? No wonder you don't like it.
You got to hit like on the comments. You got to hit like on them. Give them the heart.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge it.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, Joe, I've got some. I hope you don't mind this, but I've got some ideas for episodes for you.
All right, go for it.
That I've come up with that in reality, please don't do. But ZX Spectrum games, ZX Spectrum versions of classic Sega games.
Oh God!
Yeah, exactly.
I think Kim Justice just do that.
Sorry,
I think Kim Justice just did that.
Oh, really? Okay, well,
of Sega games, or was it Konami? It might be Konami games on the Spectrum, actually. But yeah,
because in the UK, Joe, we had this micro called the Spectrum.
Yeah,
it sounds like you sort of know about it, but it had terrible color clash, and lots of games were all just in one color.
Yeah,
and but they did lots of sort of Outrun, Afterburner, loads of sort of Sega games. And
those little computers had tons of games because I'm currently working on an episode called Arcade versus Console now, and there's like a lot of games that I didn't include in the episode that I might have otherwise included that had just like tons of ZX Spectrum or what have you, those British microcomputers, just like tons of them. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to play this on the Amstrad CPC. It's like these games barely crawl along. No one's going to be interested in seeing this, but I have to show them.
But it took someone 3 weeks to make. Surely you must want to play it.
Yeah.
3 weeks in a basement.
It takes longer to play the game than it does to make it.
Yeah. No, I certainly got that impression. But this might be a little bit more of a sort of an interesting one. Games that could do with a 2022 remaster. So classic games that you really enjoyed, but actually could do with some quality of life improvements and graphical improvements for 2022.
I think we did an episode about that. I don't remember what games we talked about. It was a while ago, I know, but maybe we'll see if I feel it in the future. Visit that subject again.
Well, we're just getting remasters of bloody Dead Space and things that are only a few years old now. So
oh yeah,
Uncharted 4, remaster that.
I mean, they did that when the PlayStation 4 came out. They had to remaster Last of Us almost right away.
I think they're doing that again.
They're doing it again,
goody.
For the PS5. It doesn't need another remaster. It's the PS3 version was good enough, but anyway.
Just add some, put a patch on the current version that will give it PS5.
I'd rather Naughty Dog make a Jack and Daxter update than Last of Us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, do something new.
Yeah, do something new that's really old. But
Yeah.
one last idea for an episode, Joe, is games that are terrible, but you just love to play them. Awful games, but they're just good.
I think we had one called Guilty Pleasures, like
that's another
10 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe 11
Need to
years
remaster
ago.
that. Need a
Guilty
remaster.
Pleasures 2.
Yeah, maybe. I have to find some more. I mean, there's plenty of games that I play that many people would find awful just because, it's a Sega game or what have you. It's like, oh, wow, you like Phantasy Star? Why don't you play Chrono Trigger instead?
Ugh. Get away with your Super Nintendo nonsense. One quick sort of final one then before we wrap up. I mean, obviously Dave was your co-host for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's sort of got a life outside of video games, which I think some people have apparently, which is a bit weird. To find that out. Yeah, quite disturbing. But obviously he wasn't able to sort of keep up, and obviously life and everything got in the way, and he wanted to sort of focus on that side. Is he going to be? I know he's appeared like once or twice since he sort of officially left the show, but is the idea that he'll just keep appearing sporadically in the future?
I mean, I'd like that. And the biggest problem, and is something I'm working on that I have to just ignore, is all these people who comment. It's like, oh, Dave, we miss you, and that seems to bring them back whenever I have Dave on, and then they'll just make disparaging remarks like, oh, finally the good one's back and stuff. And I just got to ignore that stuff.
Yeah, don't worry. They're just it was talking about sort of obviously when Dave left. I felt that the humor and everything, it still carried on, and I almost want to say that it's just as good with just yourself, if not better, really. Sort of carrying on with yourself, and that was it's always sort of a difficult thing to sort of the transfer from sort of one to the other, and I think it was all managed very well, and then Dave has come back for sort of a couple of episodes, and it was just people have lives, and these things take a lot of time to do, and he's got his job and family and everything like that, and I think the majority of people sort of understood sort of the situation.
I think so. I was kind of nervous about it. But I was amazed it worked out as well as it did. I think what helped is I just kept making them at the same pace that we've always been making them, and the same quality, at least in my opinion. And that helped keep it. And I didn't try to bring in some new gag or new gimmick to replace them. I just kept going, and a lot of people will say, "Well, you could use a co-host." And like, well, yeah, maybe some episodes could. And there's definitely one that's on my mind that I want to make with Dave, and it would be wrong to make it without him, and that's Tude. What did we call it? Something about Tude, but
90s attitude,
the Tude era. I want to make another one of those, but it would really help if Dave was in that one. So
I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, hopefully we can get that done. And then I might have a different co-host for one episode. I did have a different guy when we did the CRT mod for RGB, but I might have a different guy because I'm doing a Dungeons and Dragons episode, or at least I want to. And this person is making a documentary on Dungeons and Dragons. He was actually on one of the television programs we have in the U.S. back in the 90s, a comedy program we have called Mad TV. I want to have him on as well. And he's going to be out here working on the documentary in the next couple of days, actually. So hopefully we'll get around to that.
That sounds cool. Okay, well, so Joe, I mean, in terms of where can we find you on the internet, is there any particular social media or any website or anything you want to call out? Obviously, you're on YouTube with GameSack.
Yeah, I have GameSack on YouTube, just at GameSack on Twitter, which is basically the social media I look at most. If you try to friend me on Facebook, I'll probably ignore that because I have I noticed you I think Stuart, you sent me a friend request.
Sorry,
Sorry,
I did. Yeah.
Sorry for ignoring that, but you're not
That's okay. That's great.
So if I don't know you like in real life, I would just ignore it. I have like a lot of unanswered friend requests.
That's fair enough.
Then there's Instagram, which I very rarely even visit.
Yeah.
So I think I have a link tree, but yeah, it's just Linktree/GameSack that has all my stuff. If you guys are familiar with Linktree at all.
Yeah, it's like one place you've got all your links, isn't it?
Right, and that has like the GameSack website, so you can see information about each episode. And like if you're interested in my other channels, like the GameSack skits, where all the humor stuff is, without all the silly game stuff, and then Sound Sack, where I talk just about sound and games or just sound in general. I don't update that as much as I should, but I'm only one man.
Cool. So. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for coming on. We've had a few sound issues that hopefully I've been editing out in the actual final version of this, but yeah, really appreciate you being on. Stu, where can you find us on the internet?
Find us on YouTube under Console Shock, Twitter, Console Shock. We're on Facebook, again, Console Shock, and any sort of podcast client, if you search Console Shock, you'll be able to find us. So Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, anything like that.
All the podcast catchers. And if you like my voice and you also like Star Trek, we've already chatted about it earlier in this episode, but I have my other podcast, Long Range Sensors. We just had an episode come out very recently, so yeah, check that out as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining on the latest episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.
See you guys.